The alarm started screaming at exactly 3 in the afternoon. Station time. Daniel Harper dropped his wrench and looked up at the flashing red lights. He had worked on Harmony Point for 6 years, and he knew every alarm the station had. This one meant intruders. This one meant danger. He was alone in Cargo Bay 7, surrounded by metal crates and supply containers. The bay was deep in the lower levels of the station, far from the diplomatic halls where important aliens made important deals. Daniel was just a cargo technician. He moved boxes. He fixed machines. He stayed out of the way of the powerful beings who visited this place. The alarm kept screaming. Daniel moved to the door and pressed his ear against the cold metal. He could hear distant sounds, shouting, energy weapons firing. Something was very wrong up there. He stepped back from the door and tried to think. The emergency protocols said he should stay in place and wait for security. But the sounds of fighting were getting closer. Whatever was happening, it was spreading through the station. The door to the cargo bay slid open. Daniel grabbed his wrench and raised it, ready to defend himself. But he stopped when he saw what stumbled through the doorway. It was a young alien female. She was Volanthi, one of the tall, elegant species with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Daniel had seen Volanthi before. They walked through the station like they owned the universe, their guards pushing everyone else aside. This one had no guards. This one was bleeding. She fell against a stack of crates, her hand pressed against a wound on her arm. Purple blood dripped between her fingers. Her silver eyes were wide with fear, and she was breathing hard. Daniel lowered his wrench. He did not know who she was. He did not know why she was bleeding. He only knew that she needed help. He moved toward her slowly, his hands open to show he meant no harm. She flinched when she saw him approach. "Easy," Daniel said. His voice was calm and low. "I am not going to hurt you. You are wounded. Let me help." The alien stared at him. Her silver eyes studied his face, looking for lies, looking for tricks. She said nothing. Daniel reached into his work belt and pulled out a clean cloth. He always carried one for wiping grease from his hands. He held it up so she could see it. "For your arm," he said, "to stop the bleeding." She hesitated. Then, slowly, she moved her hand away from the wound. Daniel stepped closer and wrapped the cloth around her arm, tying it tight. She winced at the pressure, but did not cry out. "What happened up there?" Daniel asked. "Mercenaries," she said. Her voice was soft and scared. "They attacked. They killed my guards. They are hunting me." Daniel looked at her more closely. Her clothes were torn, but he could see they were made of expensive fabric. There was a symbol on her shoulder, something that looked like a crown wrapped in stars. He recognized that symbol. Every worker on Harmony Point knew it. It was the royal seal of the Volanthi Empire. Daniel felt his stomach drop. This was not just some alien visitor. This was a princess. "They want to take me," she continued. "They want to use me against my mother." "Your mother," Daniel repeated. "Queen Thesara." Daniel knew that name too. Everyone knew that name. Queen Thesara ruled one of the largest empires in the galaxy. She commanded fleets of warships. She had the power to destroy entire worlds, and her daughter was bleeding in his cargo. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Voices shouted in a language Daniel did not understand. The mercenaries were close. The princess looked at the door, her silver eyes filling with terror. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She was too weak from blood loss. Daniel made his choice without thinking. He grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a tall stack of crates. He pushed her down into the shadows and crouched beside her. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "Do not move." She looked at him with confusion. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you need help." "But you do not know me. You do not owe me anything." "I do not need to know you. Daniel said. "And I do not need to owe you. Now be quiet." The cargo bay door slid open again. Daniel pressed himself flat against the crates and held his breath. He could hear the mercenaries entering the bay. Their boots clicked against the metal floor. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. "Search everything," a rough voice commanded. "She came this way. I can smell her blood." Daniel reached down and found the princess's hand. He squeezed it gently, telling her without words that she was not alone. Her fingers were cold, but she squeezed back. The mercenaries spread out across the cargo bay. Daniel could hear them pushing crates aside, kicking open containers. They were getting closer. He looked around for anything he could use. His wrench was still in his hand. It was not much of a weapon against armed killers, but it was something. He would not let them take her without a fight. The princess watched him with strange eyes. She did not understand why this human was risking his life for her. Her people had always taught her that humans were selfish creatures who cared only about themselves. They were supposed to be primitive and brutal, barely worthy of attention. But this human held her hand in the darkness and promised her with his silence that he would protect her. A mercenary walked past their hiding spot. Daniel could see the alien's legs through a gap in the crates. He held perfectly still. The princess stopped breathing. The mercenary paused. He turned his head, as if listening for something. Daniel tightened his grip on the wrench. Then the mercenary's radio crackled. Another voice spoke, giving orders. The mercenary grunted and walked away, moving toward the far side of the bay. Daniel let out a slow breath. They were safe for now, but the mercenaries were not leaving. They were still searching. Sooner or later, they would find this corner of the bay. He looked at the princess. Her eyes met his in the dim light. She was scared, but she was trusting him. Daniel did not know how he was going to save her. He only knew that he had to try. The hunt was not over. It was just beginning. Daniel opened his eyes and saw stars. For a moment, he thought he was dead. The ceiling above him was a window, showing the endless black of space filled with distant lights. He lay on a soft bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with alien technology. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his shoulder. He fell back with a groan. "You should not move." A Volante healer stood beside his bed. She wore white robes and carried a device that glowed with soft blue light. She pressed it against his chest and studied the readings. "You almost died," she said. "The blade missed your heart by less than a finger's width. If our surgeons had not worked on you immediately, you would be gone." Daniel looked down at his shoulder. It was wrapped in bandages that seemed to glow from within. He could feel warmth spreading from them, healing energy working on his damaged flesh. "Where am I?" he asked. "You are aboard the royal flagship," the healer said. "Our Majesty ordered you brought here after the battle. She wanted you treated by the best healers in the Empire." Daniel stared at her. The Queen had saved him. The Queen who was supposed to be cold and ruthless, who was supposed to care nothing for other species, had ordered her doctors to save a human cargo worker. "The princess," Daniel said. "Is she safe?" The healer smiled. It was a warm smile, unexpected from a species known for their cold nature. "She is safe. She has asked about you many times. She will be pleased to know you are awake." The healer left, and Daniel lay alone with his thoughts. He remembered the fight. He remembered the knife going into his shoulder. He remembered the Queen's face, staring at him with those frozen star eyes. What was going to happen now? An hour later, the door to his room slid open. Princess Velara walked in, dressed in beautiful royal clothes. Her arm was healed, showing no sign of the wound that had bled so badly in the cargo bay. She stopped beside his bed and looked down at him. Her silver eyes were soft with emotion. "You are awake," she said. "I am," Daniel replied. "I was worried." The healers said you lost too much blood. They said your human body might not survive the treatment, but you did. You survived. Daniel shrugged, then winced at the pain in his shoulder. I am stubborn. The princess laughed. It was a light, musical sound. Yes, I noticed. She sat on the edge of his bed and took his hand. Her blue fingers were cool against his warm skin. Daniel Harper, I do not have the words to thank you. You saved my life. You took a blade meant for my heart. No one has ever done such a thing for me. Anyone would have done the same, Daniel said. No. The princess shook her head firmly. They would not. I have lived in the royal court my entire life. I have seen how people act when there is danger. They run. They hide. They sacrifice others to save themselves. But you stood in front of a killer with nothing but your bare hands. You refused to let me die, even when it meant your own death. She squeezed his hand. My mother wishes to speak with you. Daniel's stomach tightened. The queen? Yes, when? You are strong enough to walk. You will be brought to her audience chamber. She wants to address you in front of the entire court. Daniel did not know what that meant. Was he being rewarded? Punished? With Volanti royalty, anything was possible. 2 days later, he walked into the Queen's audience chamber. It was the largest room Daniel had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds seemed to form beneath it. Thousands of Volanti nobles stood on either side of a long carpet that led to a massive throne at the far end. And on that throne sat Queen the SS Era. She was beautiful and terrifying. Her crown caught the light from 100 floating crystals. Her robes flowed around her like liquid silver. Her eyes watched Daniel approach with the cold intensity of a predator studying prey. The nobles whispered as Daniel walked past them. He heard their words spoken loud enough for him to hear. A human? Here? What is this creature doing in the royal chamber? Surely the queen will not acknowledge this primitive. Daniel ignored them. He kept his eyes forward, focused on the throne. His shoulders still ached, but he walked without limping. He would not show weakness here. He reached the end of the carpet and stopped. He was not sure what the proper greeting was, so he simply bowed his head. Your Majesty, he said. The chamber fell silent. Every eye was on the queen, waiting to see what she would do. Queen Thesara stood from her throne. She descended the steps slowly, her robes trailing behind her. She walked toward Daniel, her face unreadable. She stopped directly in front of him. She was taller than him by nearly a head, and she looked down at him with those cold, burning eyes. Daniel Harper, she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Human, cargo technician, former soldier. Yes, Your Majesty. Do you know what my people believe about your species? Daniel met her gaze. I have heard stories. You think we are primitive, violent, selfish. Yes, the queen nodded slowly. For centuries, that is what we have believed. We looked at humanity and saw only chaos, only destruction. We thought you were a plague spreading across the galaxy. She paused. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. I was wrong. The whispers from the nobles stopped. No one moved. No one breathed. My daughter told me everything, the queen continued. She told me how you found her bleeding in a cargo bay. How you could have walked away, could have hidden and saved yourself, but chose instead to protect a stranger. She told me how you carried her through maintenance tunnels, how you fought against trained killers with nothing but your hands, how you took a blade in your chest to save her life. The queen's voice grew softer, but somehow it carried even further. In my long years as ruler, I have seen nobles with great power run from danger. I have seen warriors with great skill choose surrender over sacrifice. But you, a human with no power and no weapon, stood against death itself for my child. She raised her hand. The entire chamber held its breath. For this, there is only one response. Queen Thesara, ruler of the Volanti Empire, commander of 1,000 warships, bowed her head to Daniel Harper Dodd, and she spoke a single word. Velthorin. The chamber exploded into chaos. Daniel waited until the mercenaries moved to the other side of the cargo bay. Then he pulled the princess to her feet and led her toward a small door in the back wall. The door led to the maintenance tunnels. Daniel had walked these tunnels 1,000 times over the years. He knew every turn, every junction, every hiding spot. If they could reach the tunnels, they had a chance. He pressed his hand against the door panel. It slid open with a soft hiss. He pushed the princess through and followed her, closing the door behind them. The tunnel was dark and narrow. Pipes ran along the walls, carrying water and power to different parts of the station. The air smelled like oil and metal. It was not a pleasant place, but it was safe. This way, Daniel said. He took the princess's hand and led her down the tunnel. She limped beside him, still weak from her wound. Where are we going? She asked. Communication hub. We can send a message to your people. Tell them where you are. The princess shook her head. They already know. My mother was told that I was kidnapped. The mercenaries want 3 star systems in exchange for my life. Daniel stopped walking. 3 star systems? My mother will not pay. She cannot. If she gives in to these demands, every criminal in the galaxy will try the same thing. She will let me die before she shows weakness. Daniel looked at her. She spoke these words with a calm voice, but he could see the pain in her silver eyes. She believed her mother would sacrifice her for the sake of the Empire. Then we will save you ourselves, Daniel said. We do not need your mother to pay anything. We just need to get you somewhere safe. The princess stared at him. You do not understand. These mercenaries are Kreth. They are the most dangerous killers in this sector. You are just a worker. You have no weapons. You have no training. What can you possibly do against them? Daniel smiled. It was a small, tired smile. I was not always a cargo technician. Before I came to this station, I was in search and rescue. I pulled people out of burning ships and collapsing buildings. I fought through storms and enemy fire to save strangers I had never met. He started walking again, pulling her along. I am not a soldier anymore, but I still remember how to protect people. They moved through the tunnels for what felt like hours. Daniel guided them around junction points where mercenaries might be waiting. He helped the princess over broken pipes and through tight spaces. When she could not walk anymore, he carried her on his back. She was lighter than he expected. The Volanti looked strong and tall, but their bones were hollow like a bird. It made them graceful but fragile. Why did you leave search and rescue? The princess asked. Her voice was quiet, spoken close to his ear as he carried her. Daniel did not answer for a long moment. Then he said, I lost someone I could not save. After that, I could not do the job anymore. Too many memories. I am sorry. It was a long time ago. They reached a ladder that led up to the next level. Daniel set the princess down and checked the path above. It was clear. The communication hub is just ahead, he said. Can you climb? She nodded. Her arm was still bleeding through the cloth, but she gripped the ladder with her good hand and pulled herself up. Daniel followed close behind, ready to catch her if she fell. They reached the top and stepped into another corridor. This one was wider and better lit. The communication hub was at the end of the hall, behind a heavy metal door. Daniel moved forward, staying close to the wall. The princess followed him, her footsteps silent on the floor. She was learning to move like him, to stay quiet and careful. They were almost at the door when they heard voices. Daniel grabbed the princess and pulled her into a side room. It was a storage closet, filled with cleaning supplies and spare parts. They pressed against the wall and listened. 2 mercenaries walked past the door. They were talking about the search, complaining that the princess had disappeared. One of them said their leader was getting angry. Daniel waited until their voices faded. Then he opened the door and looked outside. The corridor was empty again. "Now," he said. They ran to the communication hub. Daniel's hand slammed against the door panel, and it slid open. They rushed inside, and Daniel closed the door behind them. The hub was a small room filled with screens and control panels. Daniel moved to the main console and started typing. He knew how to use this system. He had sent messages for the cargo department many times. "I am sending an emergency signal on all channels," he said. "Your people will receive it. Station security will receive it. Everyone will know where you are." The princess watched him work. Her silver eyes were soft now, no longer filled with fear. "You are a strange human," she said. "Strange how?" "My people taught me that humans only act for themselves, that you are greedy and selfish. But you have asked for nothing. You have risked your life for me, and you have not asked for any reward." Daniel finished typing and turned to look at her. "Maybe your people were wrong about us." Before she could answer, the door behind them exploded. Daniel threw himself in front of the princess as smoke and fire filled the room. Through the burning doorway, a massive figure stepped forward. He was Krath, with thick gray skin and scars covering his face. His eyes burned with cold anger. "There you are," the mercenary leader said. His voice was deep and cruel. "Did you think you could hide from Vorax?" Daniel stood between the princess and the killer. He had no weapon. He had no armor. He had only his body and his will. "Let her go," Daniel said. "She is not worth dying for." Vorax laughed. It was a terrible sound. "I agree. But you are the one who will die, human. Step aside, and I will make it quick." Daniel did not move. "So be it," Vorax said. He raised his weapon and aimed at Daniel's chest. Her mother has already been told that her daughter is dead. One more body makes no difference. The princess grabbed Daniel's arm. "Please," she whispered. "Please, just go. Do not die for me." Daniel looked back at her. He saw the fear in her eyes, the tears on her blue cheeks. He saw a young woman who believed she was about to die alone. He turned back to Vorax and raised his fists. "She is not dying today," Daniel said. "And neither am I." Vorax looked at Daniel with amusement. The human stood there with nothing but his fists, facing a killer who had destroyed entire crews of trained soldiers. It was almost funny. "You have courage," Vorax said. "Stupid courage, but courage. I will remember you when I count my payment." Daniel did not wait for Vorax to finish talking. He grabbed the metal chair from beside the console and threw it at the mercenary's face. Vorax raised his arm to block it. In that moment, Daniel charged forward and slammed his shoulder into the mercenary's chest. It was like hitting a wall. Vorax barely moved, but Daniel had not expected to knock him down. He only needed to get close. Daniel grabbed Vorax's weapon arm and twisted. The energy pistol fired into the ceiling, burning a hole in the metal. Daniel kept twisting, using his whole body to fight for control of the weapon. Vorax roared with anger. He swung his free arm and struck Daniel across the face. The blow sent Daniel flying backward. He crashed into the console and fell to the floor, his vision spinning. But the weapon had fallen too. It lay on the ground between them. Daniel pushed himself up and dove for it. His fingers touched the handle just as Vorax's boot came down on his hand. Bones cracked. Daniel screamed. "Foolish human," Vorax said. He kicked the weapon away and reached down to grab Daniel by the throat. He lifted the human off the ground like he weighed nothing. "You could have walked away. You could have lived. Now you will die for nothing." Daniel could not breathe. Vorax's fingers were crushing his throat. Black spots danced in his vision. Then he heard the princess scream. She had grabbed the fallen weapon. Her hands were shaking, but she aimed it at Vorax and fired. The shot hit the mercenary in the shoulder. Vorax dropped Daniel and stumbled back, purple blood pouring from the wound. He looked at the princess with shock, then rage. "You little creature," he growled. "I was going to keep you alive for the ransom. Now I will kill you myself." He started toward her. The princess fired again, but her aim was wild. The shots burned holes in the walls, but missed Vorax completely. Daniel could not let this happen. He pushed himself off the floor, ignoring the pain in his broken hand and bruised throat. He ran at Vorax from behind and jumped onto the mercenary's back. His arms wrapped around Vorax's neck, squeezing with all the strength he had left. Vorax thrashed and spun, trying to throw Daniel off. But Daniel held on. He had carried injured people out of burning buildings. He had climbed through wreckage with broken bones. He knew how to endure. "Run!" Daniel shouted at the princess. "Get out of here." She did not run. Instead, she moved to the console and started pressing buttons. Her fingers flew across the controls, entering commands that Daniel did not understand. Vorax finally managed to grab Daniel's arm. He pulled the human off his back and threw him across the room. Daniel hit the wall hard and slid to the floor. He tried to get up, but his body would not obey. The mercenary turned back to the princess. She was still at the console, still working on something. "What are you doing?" Vorax demanded. "Calling for help," she said. Her voice was steady now. The fear was still there, but she was fighting through it. "My mother's fleet is already coming. They will be here soon." Vorax laughed. "Your mother's fleet is hours away. You will be dead long before they arrive." A new alarm began to sound. This one was different from the intruder alert. This one signaled incoming ships. Vorax's laughter stopped. He looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see through it to the space outside. "That is not possible," he said. The princess smiled. It was a cold smile, full of royal pride. "My mother was already on her way before your attack. She was coming to escort me home personally. When she received your ransom demand, she ordered her ships to maximum speed." The station shook as something massive dropped out of hyperspace nearby. Then another. Daniel crawled to the console and pulled himself up. Through the window, he could see the shapes of Volanti warships surrounding the station. There were dozens of them. Their weapons were charging, ready to fire. Vorax stared at the fleet with wide eyes. His plan was falling apart. "No," he said. "No, this cannot be. I had more time. I was supposed to have more time." He spun and grabbed a knife from his belt. His eyes fixed on the princess with murderous hate. "If I cannot have the ransom," he snarled, "then I will have my revenge. Your mother will watch her daughter die." He lunged at the princess. The blade aimed at her heart. Daniel moved without thinking. He threw himself between them, his body blocking the path of the knife. The blade sank into his shoulder, just above his heart. Pain exploded through Daniel's body. He felt the cold metal inside him, felt his blood pouring out. But he did not fall. He grabbed Vorax's arm and held it in place, keeping the mercenary from pulling the knife out for another strike. "You will not touch her," Daniel said through gritted teeth. Vorax tried to pull free, but Daniel's grip was iron. The human was dying, but he would not let go. The door behind them burst open. Volanti soldiers poured into the room, their weapons raised. They saw their princess alive, saw the human holding back her attacker with a knife in his shoulder. And behind the soldiers, a tall figure stepped into the room. She wore a crown of silver and diamonds. Her blue skin was pale as ice, and her eyes burned like frozen stars. She looked at her daughter, then at the bleeding human who had protected her. Queen Desara had arrived. Daniel's strength finally gave out. He released Vorax's arm and collapsed to the floor, the knife still buried in his flesh. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the Queen's face, staring at him with an expression he could not read. Then there was nothing but silence. The nobles shouted in outrage. Some of them stepped forward with raised fists. Others fell back in shock, their faces pale with disbelief. "Velthorin!" one of them cried. "Your Majesty, you cannot speak that word to a human. This is madness." Another shouted. "That title is sacred. It cannot be given to an outsider." Daniel stood frozen, unsure of what was happening. He looked at the Queen, but she had not moved. Her head was still bowed, her eyes still closed. She waited for the storm to pass. Finally, she raised her head. One look from her frozen star eyes silenced the entire chamber. "I am your Queen," she said. Her voice was soft but deadly. "I decide what is sacred. I decide what titles are given. And I have decided." She turned back to Daniel. "Do you know what Velthorin means?" "No, Your Majesty. It is an ancient word from the old tongue of our people. It means protector of blood, defender of the line." She paused, letting the weight of the word settle. "In our entire history, this title has been given only 7 times. Each time, it was given to a Volante warrior who saved the life of a royal at the cost of their own safety." Daniel's heart was pounding. He still did not fully understand what was happening. "The title carries great honor," the Queen continued. "Those who bear it are considered bloodkin to the royal family. They are given the rights of a prince or princess. They are protected by our laws, honored by our people, and welcomed in any Volante home across the galaxy." She looked at the shocked nobles around her. "This human did what none of you have ever done. He asked for nothing. He expected nothing. He simply saw someone who needed help, and he gave everything he had to protect her." Princess Velara stepped forward from where she had been standing among the court. She walked to Daniel's side and took his hand. "I asked my mother to do this," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I told her that if we truly believe in honor, then honor must recognize all who earn it. Species does not matter. Power does not matter. Only deeds." She looked at Daniel with tears in her silver eyes. "You are my sworn brother now, Daniel Harper. From this day until the stars go dark, you are family." Daniel did not know what to say. He had never expected any of this. He had only done what felt right. He had protected someone who needed protecting. That was all. Queen Thesara stepped closer to him. For the first time, he saw something soft in her cold eyes. Something almost like warmth. "I have ruled this empire for 60 years, she said quietly, so only he could hear. "I have made countless decisions about war and peace, life and death. But my greatest mistake was not a decision I made. It was a belief I held. I believed that humans were beneath us. That you were a species without honor, without worth." She placed her hand on his shoulder, over the wound that had nearly killed him. "You taught me that I was wrong. And for that lesson, I thank you." The news of what happened in the Queen's audience chamber spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species heard the story. A human cargo worker had saved the Volante princess and been named bloodkin to the royal family. Many did not believe it at first. The Volante had always looked down on humans. They had always called humanity primitive and dangerous. But Queen Thesara released a public message confirming everything. She stood before the cameras with Daniel at her side and announced that the Volante Empire would seek closer relations with humanity. "We judged too quickly," she said to the watching galaxy. "We allowed fear and prejudice to blind us to the truth. Humans are not the monsters we thought they were. They are capable of courage, sacrifice, and honor equal to any species in the stars." Daniel stood beside her, uncomfortable in the fine clothes they had given him. He did not like the attention. He did not like the cameras and the crowds. He just wanted to go back to his quiet life on Harmony Point. When the ceremony was over, he approached the queen. "Your Majesty," he said, "I am grateful for everything you have done, but I do not belong here. I am not a prince or a diplomat. I am just a man who fixes cargo machines." Queen Nisara looked at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was not a cold laugh or a mocking laugh. It was a genuine, warm sound that surprised everyone in the room. The nobles stared in shock. They had never heard their queen laugh like that before. "You are exactly what I expected you to be," she said. "Humble, honest, more interested in work than glory." She smiled at him. "Very well, Daniel Harper. Return to your station. Fix your cargo machines. But know that you will always have a place in my home, and my daughter will never forget what you did for her." A week later, Daniel walked back in the Cargo Bay 7 on Harmony Point. His co-workers stared at him. They had heard the stories. They had seen the news. And now they saw the royal insignia that had been added to his work uniform, a small crown wrapped in stars, marking him as bloodkin to the Volanthi throne. So, one of them said, "Are we supposed to bow now?" Daniel picked up his wrench and looked at the broken machine he had left behind when the alarm started screaming. "Just help me with this pipe," he said. "It is leaking again." He went back to work. The galaxy had changed around him, but he was still the same man. He still fixed machines. He still stayed out of the way of important people. But now, sometimes, his console would light up with messages from distant stars. Princess Velara wrote to him often, telling him about her life and asking about his. Queen Nisara sent shorter messages, usually just a few words. But each one carried a warmth that the galaxy had never known she possessed. And sometimes, Daniel would stop his work and look out the window at the stars. He would think about how strange life could be. He had come to Harmony Point to escape his past, to hide from the pain of people he could not save. But in running away, he had found something he never expected. He had found a family among the stars, and he had shown the galaxy that true strength was not found in weapons or warships or empires. It was found in the simple choice to help someone who needed it.